Welcome to Morae's podcast series, Speaking of Changing Legal, where we discuss the leading trends and innovations reshaping the way legal work is done. This episode features Robin Snasdell and Murtuza Vohra as our hosts for today's topic. They talk about how generative AI's transformative power and insights are revolutionizing legal spend management.
Hey, Murtuza. How are you doing today?
Couldn't be better, Robin. Excited to do this again with you on a different topic.
Yeah. Well, things are moving rapidly out there. So this Gen AI stuff is really sweeping the legal industry. It's hard to keep up with, the number of use cases that are out there and the number of, places that it impacts. Are you kind of surprised about how prevalent it's becoming so quickly?
Yeah, the maturity is definitely improving, right? Last year we were still talking about security frameworks and is my data going to be exposed to the internet? The concerns were different, right? It was new. The technology was still sort of like in its early phase, and now you could see that progression. And I think, it's the adoption is going to be parabolic. We're seeing that. We are past the mundane conversations that we had last year, and now the important conversations, but now we are actually action-oriented, things that we could do with the use cases that we've identified, right?
Yeah, I didn't tell you the other day I was speaking to a law firm CIO, pretty big law firm, and he told me that, once they adopted the Gen AI approach, they hired 8 people to work heads down, developing use cases for every single practice area in the law firm, which didn't surprise me, but it sure as heck was a long way from where we were, this time last year.
What's happening? I'm not surprised, quite frankly. What's happening now is we are starting off with one use case, and then the client is asking questions. Well, can you do this? This is a pain point for us, and the tech stack that we have, it's not quite working how it's supposed to, and that's yielding more thought-provoked use cases. Yeah, and both CIOs, they're looking at operational efficiency. How can they use this tech to get better services? How can they maintain the competitive advantage? Legal is looking at the same technology in terms of, how to hold the law firms more accountable for the work that they're delivering. So, that's essentially what we are trying to do, to have a new normal and then get both parties aligned on this paradigm shift that we are seeing right in front of our eyes.
Right. The comment that stuck out to me from this CIO was, interestingly enough, the only thing that was going to slow them down was the revenue model of the law firm, which is obviously a change management exercise. But I know that you've been kind of working with a couple of our clients on some very interesting use cases, one of which, of course, is spend management. I know that there's a lot of incredible benefits that are coming from it. You want to give me an update?
Yeah, the last couple of engagements one was completely off the left field. If you think about it, from where we started the conversation to what have it evolved, what was the spend management exercise became I hate the reporting engine that I use to report my data, and can your generative AI replace my analytics engine? So what we ended up building is really what Gen AI is now evolving into is agentic AI. So what we did was we built an AI agent that sat on top of the client data warehouse. And essentially, instead of, having these canned reports or pre-configured reports or reports that have to be customized, you could ask questions using that agent or to the agent in natural language and then get a response back. And you could tailor the response, just like, if you're using ChatGPT, you get a response. And if you don't like the response, you give additional prompting and until you're satisfied with what you're really looking for. Same thing, except for it's a private containerized view of your data. So you're asking questions about your data. Show me the spend. Show me where majority of my spend is. How do these law firms compare against each other, working on similar cases, things of that nature. You can do a lot of trend analysis. You could figure out patterns that you otherwise wouldn't. Just because Gen AI can scale so easily, it can look at tens of years of data altogether and then, it can give you rapid responses back without sort of like a clock ticking, in so many of the systems that we've seen that you're waiting for this response, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes before it shows you something back on the screen. Now, this is pretty instantaneous. I mean, that's one example. The other example is, working with an insurance, company, and they're looking at ways to make their panel firms more accountable and also do a panel refresh. So, yeah, I mean, so we are looking at spend in a very different way. It's not quantitative, it's really qualitative. How is the law firm handling the case? What is the life cycle? What methodology are they following? What timekeepers are they using? Is there task proportionality? So, I mean, these are the things that, traditional ELM systems or any bill review service is not providing. So that's what's challenging about this. So taking this technology and actually implementing it to do qualitative review like that, it's just completely, I mean, we are blown away with the results that we are seeing. I mean, quite frankly, Robin.
Right.
And I've told you offline about this. I mean, in certain cases, even for mature companies, we're looking at 30, 40, 50% in reduction. We have many things, right? And the panel refresh is one of the things. The other thing is, we are finding these blind spots that ELM systems are not programmed to do just because, they don't have the context. So we are using Gen AI to develop the context, think like how humans would think, and then essentially challenge, the current normal.
Yeah. So let's break this down a little bit. That first client, we were making, like you said, they were not happy with their reporting capabilities, which there are so many clients out there, law department, compliance functions, law firms that we work with that are all unhappy with their reporting capabilities. So what we did, it sounds like, is we utilized generative AI in an agent or a use case to make that data more accessible to just the average Joe user, not somebody who was technical necessarily, but somebody who just was grazing through the content.
And nothing to maintain, Robin. I mean, nobody to contact. Just ask a question, you get an answer.
Right.
And you could drill down. You could drill down if you could ask many succeeding questions until you get exactly to the data point that you're looking at. Plus, I think what's intuitive about this is just it's like, us talking, two humans talking. It's essentially, having a conversation with the agent. And It can guide you. It can recommend certain things. And it can also prompt you back saying, would you like to look into this based on your line of reasoning? So it's super intuitive.
Yeah. So that's a different experience to the users, the humans that are actually looking at the data. So that's sort of one strength that generative AI brings to the table. As we dug deeper with our additional clients, we're seeing, as you mentioned, this qualitative review of invoices and or of legal spend. And I think that some of the things that we've been talking about recently are actually kind of mind-boggling. The capability of being able to review, let's say, one line item and put that line item in multiple contexts using the generative AI is incredibly powerful. And what we've done with things like clustering and breaking down the phases of different matters and different disputes. Tell us kind of a little bit more where that's leading.
Yeah, I mean, for this insurance company, for instance, Robin, when the invoice comes in, it comes in with narratives. And then usually what happens in ELM systems or traditional systems is that, there are rules that are enforcing the Outset Council billing guidelines. But the rules are the expense cannot be charged, or a timekeeper cannot bill more than 8 hours. I mean, they're all quantitative based rules that are enforced. What about block billing? When they have like 5 different things that they did and they just put in all in narrative without really providing the breakdown. What about making an assessment if the right person or if the right timekeeper was assigned to complete that task? How does that task that the timekeeper did was appropriate in terms of the amount of effort that was captured on the line item. Was it the right amount? Was that effort justified? I mean, things like these are generally opinions that, attorneys and senior counsel and they eyeball, and based on the experience of working with the law firms, for tens of years or number of years, they start to get an idea, how the law firm operates. But to generative AI, you feed all the data. In this instance, we fed all the claims data to figure out, to gather the context, how the claims were handled, what the life cycle looked like, what was the phase segmentation, how much time was spent by what timekeepers, across the different phases of the claim until it was settled or until it was litigated. I mean, all of this analysis was done. And, we went through multiple iterations and calibrations where the taxonomy was a particular thing, and then it evolved because we found out the data points that didn't fit in the taxonomy. So, it was sort of like the fine-tuning exercise until we hit the right taxonomy and then the right phases, so that when a claim, when an invoice comes in against a particular matter, we can put it in the right cluster of information that now we've segmented. So instead of, this large data set, with tens and thousands of records, or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of records, you can now look at a very specific set that is more aligned to the invoice that came in, that law firm, worked upon. So long story short, we are able to do claim cluster analysis and form an opinion about the work that the law firm is delivering via the timekeepers that they've assigned. And whether is it the right timekeeper, whether, was it the right amount? It's sort of like, giving you a playbook. So if you're on the corporate legal department side, you have a playbook. You know exactly how this case is going to span. And then, you can hand over that playbook. You can dictate terms with the law firms now because, you now have that data based on, how law firms have, provided their service in the past. So you can you can zoom in into how things were done over the years. And now you have a playbook, and now your starting point for the law firm is completely different than just engaging them on a case.
Sure. These are things, this is an example of how we're using the technology to go through steps that the humans should be going through, but probably, not probably, 99% are not going through because, number one, they don't have access to the data points, probably. They don't have the visibility and, outside of like, a line item on an invoice. And because of that, they don't have those contexts, and then therefore can't make the decisions, that they should be making. It's like we're using the generative AI and the agent itself to do work that the humans should be doing, but are not doing. And because of that, we're becoming better decision makers. We're actually influencing the way the law firms behave. We're influencing the strategy behind, dispute resolution. I mean, there's a whole ton of things here, quantifiable and probably not quantifiable or impossible to quantify, that is being impacted by it.
I mean, it's taking a ton of unstructured data and then creating a structured and converting it into a structured data, really. So when you have a bunch of unstructured data, which is now structured, you inherently are providing that capacity of using that structured data to give you better outcomes. So that's what we are seeing. I mean, Robin, both engagements are very successful. The clients started with some hesitation, but they were pro generative AI because they did their due diligence about, the security concerns that they had. And also, the fact that, Gen AI, it's been what, like a 2-year journey. I mean, this July, it's going to be 2 years since everyone started talking about, or at least, we started seriously looking into it. It's been a good 2 years, coming this July. So I think both clients are blown away by what they're seeing in terms of outcomes. And I think, they could easily see what law firms are outliers, who the egregious billers are. And I think they're
Who's making the
now going,
mistakes?
who are making the mistakes. And I mean, the corporate legal department, the attorney sitting on the corporate legal side, and the law firm, the attorney sitting on the law firm side, they have this relationship. And it's a trusted relationship for over the years, right? So I mean, you and I, we've spoken this offline. How do they challenge each other now? I mean, this working relationship that they have for a number of years, the trust, right? But now they're finding that some of that trust, was misused. And here's the data. So now, the clients are tasked with, well, do I need a panel refresh? Do I need to, just kick out, some of the panels that have been taking advantage of the relationship and just keep the ones that are highly efficient, that are doing a fantastic job for them? Or, I mean, how do you make them even more efficient? So,
I mean, ultimately, it's a relationship, but that relationship has to be built on trust. It's just this type of agent has the ability of really shining the light and discovering what the firms are actually doing. Big picture, we're rapidly going down the rabbit hole with legal spend. And each time, we're approached by a new client, I think that we're finding more and more avenues to explore in terms of, how to evaluate the work of the legal service provider. My prediction is as corporates and corporate legal departments get better at reviewing their legal spend, the law firms are going to have to catch up. So they're going to have to do a much better job of preparing their invoices, preparing the work product that is actually that they're working on. And I mean, the billing process is terrible on both sides. So, generative AI could actually help the law firms through, the gauntlet of rules that they have to follow, and in preparing invoices for billing purposes, don't you think?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. Well, law firms that do not use generative AI to drive the operational efficiency internally, they're going to be left behind. They'll be forced out of the panels if they don't innovate, if they don't adapt to this changing paradigm. It's just, if they don't shift their mentality, I mean, they'll struggle to maintain their revenue base. They'll struggle to, be on the corporate legal department panel. And on the corporate legal, side, there's this constant, pressure about spend, shrinking budgets, do more with less. So this sort of like it's a bright spot for the corporate legal department. Like, I mean, they're adopting it and really quickly now. I mean, it's really, they see the benefits of where this is taking. And I think, the number of projects that we've done, either proof of concepts or pilots, or because obviously those clients, wanted to see how it works before they actually, went full deployment. So having gone through this exercise, I mean, quite frankly, even we are blown away with what our expectations were. So I think, this year is going to be formative in terms of how clients and law firms, how corporate legal departments and law firms are going to accelerate into building use cases that are identified, and they will solve very specific pain points for them. Spend is obviously, a low-hanging fruit for the corporate legal department and law firms alike. I mean, that's essentially where, both parties are intersecting in this, providing the service and consuming the service. So I personally can't be more optimistic about how this is going to evolve and what next year is going to look like. I mean, this is the internet. I mean, do you remember 95 to 2000, when, we had emails and what happened in 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing over again. Well, so, I mean, kind of where we are this time last year, we were talking about generative AI. We saw kind of the potential for it. Now we're in second, third, sort of fourth iterations of utilizing it for different use cases, legal spend, of course, being one critical area, but it's going to likely impact a number of, variety of areas within legal. It's going to be exciting to watch. So more to come.
Yeah, I mean, more to come. And what Robin, you and I, we've been working on this together. So if you're using a bill review service today, right, it's or if you are using an ELM platform or a combination of an ELM platform with a build review service, and you're struggling with, well, how is generative AI going to help me? I'm in a pretty mature state already. If I want to, maybe generative AI will save me a few bucks. Well, no, you're mistaken. So, come talk to us. Writing a series of reports, which is published on LinkedIn. It talks about the traditional approach of electronic or the traditional approach of billing or spend management versus Gen AI powered spend management. What are the facets that are completely different? So I'm writing a series of articles which will give you further insights into it. So be sure to click those links and go through. Those are quick reads, but it'll give you more insights in terms of where you are today. If you're struggling to figure out how generative AI fits in within your current tech stack, it gives you some more material to take it back to your general counsel and create a business case of why you should be moving towards generative AI, both for build review and also plug into your ELM or your existing tech stack to power these additional savings that you're not taking advantage of today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Murtuza. Good chatting. Wanted to remind the listeners to this podcast to subscribe to the podcast and contact Morae for a tailored demonstration of Morae Spend Insights. And thanks all to the listeners who tuned in today.
Yeah, thank you all. And if you have any feedback, if you'd like to hear on certain topics, how generative AI could potentially impact your use case, and if you want to hear about this, please leave us feedback. Yes, and please subscribe, and we're excited to bring on the next topic. Thank you all.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.